Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and welcome to another Pokemon Sun and Moon Movesets video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking all about the new Pokemon Mimikyu. So let's get started by taking a look at this Pokemon's typing, abilities, and stats. So to start things off, Mimikyu is a new Ghost Fairy type Pokemon introduced into Pokemon Sun and Moon, and actually the first Pokemon to possess this new unique typing, which is both great offensively and defensively. Similarly, this Pokemon also is the first one to get the new ability Disguise, which essentially allows Mimikyu, once per battle, to have an attack directed at it do 0 damage. Now there are a few exceptions to this, meaning that your opponent can still status you through Disguise, so do keep that in mind, as well as the fact that secondary effects can also be triggered through Disguise, meaning that if your opponent were to go for a move like Scald, yes, it will do 0 damage for you if your Disguise is still up, but it also can still have a chance to burn regardless, so do keep that in mind using this Pokemon. Also, it's important to note, if I didn't hint at this already, that once the Disguise is broken, you essentially don't have it for the rest of the battle, meaning any attack directed at you will do normal damage like it would to any other Pokemon. But for its stats, this Pokemon has base 55 HP, which is fairly low. However, its physical defense being base 80 and its special defense being base 105, along with this Pokemon's massive support move pool, allow it to still be an effective defensive Pokemon. On the other hand, its physical attack is base 90, which is really good, but its special attack falls short of that, being only base 50, so more often than not, you're going to see this Pokemon used as a physical attacker. Furthermore, this Pokemon has a pretty nice speed stat, being base 96, meaning that it will outspeed a ton of things on the battlefield, but it's not going to still be in the fastest echelon of Pokemon that you might be up against. Still, it also does have access to priority in the form of Shadow Sneak, so that can help to circumvent this speed stat when you need it to. But with that, let's take a look at the first moveset that I have for you in this video. So for this first moveset, we're going to begin by giving Mimikyu either a Jolly Nature to boost its speed but lower its special attack, or an Adamant Nature to boost its physical attack but lower its special attack. As to the EVs, on this set we're going to max out its physical attack and speed by putting 252 EVs into both of those stats, and then putting the remainder 4 EVs into its physical defense. As to the item on this set, we're either going to run a Life Orb to boost the damage of all of our attacks at the cost of losing 10% of our health every time we damage our opponent, a red card as a way to allow this Pokemon to essentially force an opponent out, making use of Disguise and giving you kind of a get out of jail free card, literally, versus a setup sweeper on your opponent's team, because this Pokemon will take no damage on the turn the red card activates, which is a very cool, unique way to use this Pokemon. We could also run a Lumberry to allow this Pokemon to have the status immunity that this will provide if your opponent is trying to burn you. Obviously, it will be used up after the status happens, but it can be just enough support that you'll need to allow this Pokemon to effectively sweep. We could also theoretically run Ghost DMZ on this Pokemon to give it a powerful Ghost type move to make use of to help it break through an opposing wall. We could also run the opposite in Fairy MZ to make use of your Fairy Stab with a very powerful move. Lastly, we can also run Leftovers on this Pokemon to give it some recovery at the end of every turn, or run a Focus Sash, which, if you can preserve this Pokemon at full health, will essentially give this Pokemon 2 free hits per battle by use of the Disguise and then the Focus Sash, bringing you down to 1 HP. As for the moves on this set though, the first one that we're going to go with is going to be Swords Dance, to give this Pokemon a way to boost its physical attack by 2 stages and make it very powerful. Then, along with this, we're going to run a Fairy-type stab move in the form of Play Rough, and then also run Shadow Sneak as our main Ghost-type stab attack. Lastly, for this last move slot, we have quite a few options to potentially run, with Substitute being the first option here to allow Mimikyu to get behind a protective barrier to shield it from attacks and statuses, and also preserve your Disguise for longer. On the other hand, if we're going to go for more type coverage, we can run Shadow Claw as a stronger Ghost-type move to make use of, which will also be a more powerful Never-Ending Nightmare when used with Ghost DMZ. We could also run additional type coverage through the use of Wood Hammer, which can be effective against Pokemon like Quagsire that are going to obviously want to be unaware to your Swords Dance boosts. And lastly, we could also run Destiny Bond on the set to take advantage of this Pokemon's pretty high speed stat to essentially allow it to take down an opponent on the same turn that it also goes down. But no matter how you make use of this last move slot, this is an extremely deadly offensive set for this Pokemon to run. As for this next moveset, we're going to run a more bulky boosting set for this Pokemon. So we're going to start this one off by giving it a Careful Nature to boost its special defense but lower its special attack, and then make use of a specially defensive EV spread of 252 HP EVs, 252 special defense EVs, and then putting the remainder 4 EVs into its speed stat. As for the item, First, we're going to make use of Leftovers to increase this Pokemon's HP at the end of every turn, or run a Lumberry to allow it to heal itself from a status once in the battle, or lastly, again, choosing Ghost TMZ as an option to give this Pokemon a super powerful, never-ending nightmare Ghost-type Z move to make use of once in the battle. As for the moves on this set, though, the first one that we're going to make use of is Bulk Up to give this Pokemon a way to boost its physical attack and its physical defense. And this, coupled with the specially defensive EVs and your great defensive typing, allow this Pokemon to take hits very well and potentially sweep teams as a result of having very high defenses. With this, though, we're going to go ahead and give it Play Rough and Shadow Sneak to be your main Stab Fairy and Stab Ghost type attacks. And then for the last move slot, potentially run Substitute to again allow this Pokemon to get behind a protective barrier to shield it from attacks and statuses that will become increasingly difficult to break as you acquire Bulk Up boosts, and also will preserve your Disguise for a little bit longer. You could also run Shadow Claw again to give you a more powerful Ghost type move to make use of. And then lastly, on the set, since it's more bulky, we can also make use of Pain Split to allow this Pokemon to recover some of its HP as it leeches it off of its opponent to average their HP stats together. Moving on to a more defensive utility support set, we're going to start this one off by giving Mimikyu a Careful Nature again to boost its special defense and lower its special attack, and then make use of the same specially defensive EV spread as the previous set of 252 HP EVs, 252 special defense EVs, and 4 speed EVs to give it its maximum special bulk possible. As for the item, this time we're either going to go with Leftovers to increase your HP at the end of every turn, or make use of the red card again as a way to allow this Pokemon to put a stop to an opponent if they're trying to set up and sweep, or just to be useful to force an opponent out while you make use of your Disguise. As for the moves, the first one that we're going to go with is going to be some kind of status, either in the form of Will-O-Wisp or Thunder Wave. Will-O-Wisp being a move that will burn your opponent, causing them to take a little bit of damage at the end of every turn, and also cripple physical attackers, whereas Thunder Wave is very useful in allowing you to paralyze your opponent so that they occasionally do not attack, and also cripple their speed stat. For the second move option, you can include Thunder Wave here again if you want to run a dual status Mimikyu, or you can just go right ahead and make use of your main Stab Fairy attack and Play Rough. Furthermore, for your third move slot, include Play Rough here if you went with the first two options as statuses, or make use of Shadow Sneak to give you a priority Ghost type move, or Taunt to give this Pokemon a way to taunt other attackers, making it so that they can't make use of any non-attacking moves. Finally, for the last move slot, we're either going to make use of Substitute, again to preserve this Pokemon's Disguise for as long as possible, Shadow Sneak to give it a priority Ghost type move, Pain Split as a way to allow this Pokemon to recover HP by again leeching it off its opponent and averaging their HP stats together, and lastly, possibly making use of Destiny Bond, which will allow this Pokemon to take down its opponent on the turn that they damage Mimikyu to bring it down to no health. And this is also especially deadly when used in combination with Thunder Wave, because you're essentially paralyzing your opponent, and then you're going to be faster than them on the following turn, to which then you can Destiny Bond for free, and hopefully take them down in the process if you need to. Moving on to the last moveset of this video, we're again going to give this Pokemon a specially defensive EV spread with a Careful Nature to boost its special defense but lower its special attack, and putting 252 EVs into its HP, special defense, and putting the remainder 4 EVs into its speed stat. As to the item, again we're going to include Leftovers to allow this Pokemon to recover a little bit of HP at the end of every turn, but we're also going to make use of Ghost DMZ this time, but in a very different way. But for the first move on this set, we're going to make use of Infestation to allow this Pokemon to trap its opponents, deal a little bit of bug type damage, and also allow this Pokemon to damage its opponents for a little bit at the end of every turn for as long as they are trapped. Then, once they're trapped, we're going to make use of Curse, which is a really awesome move when used on a Ghost type Pokemon, because instead of boosting your physical attack and physical defense and lowering your speed, for a Ghost Pokemon it actually puts a curse on your opponent, which drains away 25% of their HP at the end of every turn. And this, in combination with Infestation, which is going to be trapping them on the battlefield, will essentially allow this Pokemon to deal an insane amount of residual damage at the end of every turn. It's also important to note that Curse, while it will drain away 50% of your health, is very effective on this Pokemon because of Disguise, essentially allowing it to not have to worry about this low HP that it's being given because of using Curse, because it will obviously be able to take one free attack per game. But if you do want to make use of Ghost DMZ on the set, this is where you would do it, because when you do use Curse with Ghost DMZ, it will actually increase your health back up to full, and then make you use Curse again, essentially allowing this Pokemon a free heal at the same time of also using Curse, which is very cool. But to make Infestation and Curse's residual damage even more effective, we're going to make use of Protect in this third move slot to basically shield Mimikyu from damage for one turn and allow your opponent to then take that increased damage from Curse and Infestation at the end of it, thus crippling their HP significantly. Finally, for this last move slot, we could either make use of Shadow Sneak to allow this Pokemon to have a nice priority ghost type move to give it the same revenge killing properties that it is typically known for having, but also allow it to finish off its opponents very easily after they've taken a couple turns of Curse and Infestation. Furthermore, we could also run Play Rough to give this Pokemon a Stab Fairy type attack to make use of, or Substitute to allow it to get behind a protective barrier to shield it from attacks and statuses and also preserve its disguise for even longer while it attempts to Curse Trap its opponents. Lastly, we could go with a status in the form of Will-O-Wisp or Toxic. Will-O-Wisp making your job a little bit easier to wall off attackers while you Curse Trap them, because you'll be burning physical attackers to cause them to do reduced damage, and also increase the amount of damage that they're taking at the end of every turn because of the burn damage they're going to be receiving, which also transitions very well over into Toxic as a potential option as well, as this will be increasing in damage at the end of every turn. Finally, to keep this Pokemon's HP up after it's made use of Curse, Pain Split is a very good way to allow it to recover a lot of HP back and allow it to continue to potentially Curse Trap things throughout the battle. But that is it for this video, everybody. So I hope you enjoyed these movesets on Mimikyu, which is a Pokemon that is definitely getting a lot of attention right now in the current 7th gen meta. So if you haven't had the chance to try this Pokemon out, I highly suggest it. But anyways, everybody, that is it for this video. So as always, take care, goodbye, and I will see you all next time.